Hi, everybody. Making this video for you guys because I want to help with Bible study preparation. Also, hoping to become YouTube famous, but that's another story. Yeah, my intention is to make just a short video for you guys every week, just to walk you through the study. Because some of the feedback I've gotten is that sometimes I'll write things on paper and they make sense to me, but they don't necessarily make sense to you. So let me go over week one. This is about the whole thing is about parables this semester. But week one is the parable of the sower. And the reason we chose that first is because I really think this is a baseline parable. The reason Jesus uses parables to teach is because parables really draw people in. Jesus isn't interested just in like downloading information into your head, making sure you just know all the right answers. He wants a relationship with us. And so in telling parables, he's not, people would often ask him a question and he would respond with a parable or a question back. Because he didn't just want to say like, well, here's right or wrong. He wanted to draw you in. And so the parable of the sower really is foundational to that because it's asking you to look at your own heart and see kind of where you're at. There's the 4 different kinds of soil. It'll be in Matthew 13, the passage. And, there's the 4 kinds of soil. There's the path, there's the rocky soil, there's the thorny soil, and then there's the good soil or like the fruitful soil. And so I'm going to set this up for you guys in our big group. I'll be talking about, kind of these 2 paths we have before us, following Jesus or just kind of like going our own way. And so you'll have the notes. There's a few steps before the study that you and your partner can talk through. We'll talk about it at the leadership retreat, all these different things. But excuse me, for the study itself, I'll have you guys read the parable, and then I'll skip the part about where Jesus is talking about why he taught in parables. I'm going to talk about that in the big group. And then I'll have you read the portion where the disciples are kind of like, what is this parable about? And then Jesus explains it. And so, it'd be good to have 2 different people read. It's a great way to have people get them talking. First couple of questions that I have on your list here are, it says the 4 soils represent 4 potential states of the soul. And how have you seen this parable play out in the life of someone else? Sometimes it's easier first, especially with a brand new group, to talk about what you've seen in someone else before you talk about yourself. So a good example might be like, for me, and I encourage you to come up with your own example of how you've seen one of the soils. But I've seen the path happen before, where people, it's like you tell them the gospel, but it's almost like it bounces off of them. It's like they don't get it. I've also seen the rocky soil. I remember this is someone who gets like really excited at first, and then it's like burns bright and then goes out fast. There was a girl in college I knew who became a new Christian, and she just jumped right in and she was so excited, but just like she just got bored with it and went on to the next thing. It never really took root. And so, yeah, there's some examples you can give here. I don't make this a gossip session, of course, but it's interesting when you take a parable and you're like, oh yeah, like I see this happening around me all the time. And then the next question is going to dig a little deeper. Why do you think certain people are different kinds of soil? And what I'm really getting at is, what leads us to being one soil or the other? I don't think you're like at birth. It's not like you're assigned a soil. Like, you're the rocky soil. I don't think that's it. I think that over time, whether it be through our temperament, plus the way we're raised, plus our friends and influences, our hearts become a certain way. Some of us become hard-hearted. Some of us become, worried. Some of us become distracted. And so a thought here is, like what leads us to be one soil or the other? A fair answer here is like, I think that one thing that leads one soil or the other is like what your parents emphasize in your home. If your parents emphasize, like for instance, my mom, I always felt like my mom was really worried, and so I was always really worried. And so I tend to be like the thorny person. There's a lot of potential thorns that can choke out my faith when I struggle to trust Jesus, right? Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. Um, and so, that's an example. Or another example of what might lead us to being one soil or the other is like, let's take the good soil. Like, I think people who have good soil are usually people who have had mentors and good friends come alongside them. I can think in high school was a big turning point for me where I had some mentors really come alongside me, and especially like people in college who were um, showing me what faith looked like, outside of just like the kids ministry kind of area. And so there's different things you could say. I encourage you to think about this. Be ready to give some examples, because the next step is to look deeper. And I think you could probably see parts of your life where all four of these soils come into play. And I think this part is kind of self-explanatory, but I'll say one word about the path. If someone is on the path that has come to Bible study and there's someone who stuff is bouncing off of them, they probably aren't aware of it. So in these questions here, I kind of have people considering, like, have you ever been on the path? I mean, I know that I certainly have. I've had times in my life where people have said things to me that I needed to hear, and it just went in one ear and out the other. And I responded to that because that way, for different reasons. I could have been like really anxious about something, or I just wanted what I wanted and I didn't want to hear it. But I think it's interesting to go through, do the exercise of where do we see ourselves in this parable. And then the final part, the last little paragraph there, the answer to this parable is not to just be like, congratulations, you're a certain kind of soil. The idea is that Jesus is trying to get your attention, or he's trying to show you who you really are so that you can put some of these things to death. I like this question I got from Dallas Willard. What does your mind dwell on, and why is it dwelling there? Because a part of the answer here is, how are we going to set our minds on Jesus this semester? The question I have is, what is something you can do this semester to make sure you are cultivating your mind to be more focused on Jesus? So maybe the answer here is like, I need to watch less media, or I need to have a set wake up time every day so that I can have a schedule, so I can schedule in time with the Lord. Or maybe for you, it's like, I need to make sure I'm getting outside because I really connect with God while I'm walking outside. Or maybe, for you, it's like, I need to be really committed to meeting with discipleship partners this semester because that's going to keep me on track. I think everybody could probably give an answer to this question. And if you feel like you're getting tight on time on this question, maybe that's something that could be done in the guys and girls time. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions and help you guys through whatever I can. I don't know all the answers, but I might have some thoughts. So I'm recording this on August 12th. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon. It's about to be an exciting time around here, and we're looking forward to having you back. All right. See ya.